we see.
My memory is. I don't want to talk about memory right now, considering the alternatives.
It's okay. We're the New Hampshire embeds, so we live here in New Hampshire.
Were you all in Maine last week?
We were.
Yeah. Can I just ask you anything? I mean, I can't imagine what it was like, but anything? How do you feel after that? And what did you like? How did it change you?
Well, it wasn't my first time.
That says so much.
I know, which I think is the unfortunate part. You know.
Yeah.
It was the first time that a mass shooting killed so many deaf people too. So the impact on the deaf community was very upsetting. Yeah.
How many of the deceased were? Do you know of the 18?
Four.
It's four.
Yeah, it was
4 of the
horrible.
18.
It's a really small community too, which is
It's not
scary.
easy, but we've done this before.
I know.
yeah,
just-
which
is
is
terrible.
the worst part. Yeah.
all right.
Terrible.
Oh, sorry. I don't want to.
No, you can
Nothing else,
get there. So, I mean, honestly, I guess we can start with that. Your reaction to the Lewiston mass shooting, every time there's a mass shooting, it feels like there's nothing that changes. So what would you do as president to make a difference?
We're the only nation in the entire world that has this problem. And those who believe in American exceptionalism, like I do, and that we have more capacity and more resources and more principle, this is the time to actually employ them. I'm a gun owner, and I think gun owners have to be at the table and help lead this conversation. There's a group in Minnesota called the Gun Violence Project, and Dr. Gillian Peterson and James Densley are the only ones that I'm aware of that are actually interviewing those who've survived, the offenders who've survived the shootings, the massacres. They've done psychological profiles on them. They are the only database group that I know that actually has solutions. And Maine, of course, only doesn't have red flag laws. He should have had his firearms taken from him. And if other firearm owners disagree with that, then we have a difference of opinion, a big one, because that's how American lives are being taken all the time, and I'm sick of it. My colleague Jared Golden, who did not vote for the assault weapon ban, I know changed his mind because of what he saw. This is going to be hard to say and also hard to hear, but I think it's time that Americans start seeing the carnage. I'm sure, when they see what the cameras can see and the results of these massacres, that's going to change people's minds. And I'm sick of this culture of dysfunction, of nonsense and division and fighting. Every time Democrats and Republicans fight each other, we're not fighting for one another. And this should start with gun violence. They believe in red flag laws because they work. They believe if we started investing in suicide reduction, it will end, for the most part, massacres, because most of these, as you all know, are suicides. It's so simple. And I don't know why we don't take data-based decisions and actually do something about it. And as president, that's what I want to change, is actually have, in my case, have Republicans within the White House, within the administration, perhaps at the cabinet level, so that you don't just surround yourself with people who are so focused on the politics and maintaining your position instead of saving lives. And I believe in the Constitution, and we are not pursuing it right now because we are allowing too many people to die. And if that isn't the first order of business, I don't know what is. And I just say, look at the data. Let's start with that. I also believe that we should not be allowing firearms like what was used in this massacre, and most of them AR-15 style weapons, semi-automatic weapons, in the hands of 18-year-olds, 18-year-olds. And if you're going to have one as an 18-year-old, perhaps it should be stored in a facility where you can shoot it there at the range, perhaps, or at some kind of a secure facility, but not to keep it in your bedroom. It's nonsensical. And by the way, it's ruining it for gun owners and for hunters and outdoors people. And I just want to have a national conversation that doesn't start with what divides and ends the conversation, that actually solves the problem. That's what I'm going to do.
Do you think there should be a ban on assault weapons?
I think we should first have a conversation about A, whether it's constitutional, B, how that would be achieved, and C, if that is actually going to change it. Because if it is only banning them moving forward, and there are millions of them already on the street, easily tradable, then that's a problem too. And I don't think this is a one single issue solution. I have voted for that in the past. I'm not sure that is the only solution. I believe in red flag laws. I believe we should look at age requirements for firearms use. I believe we should be looking at magazines, the sizes of magazine, the capacity, which makes a big difference. But at the end of the day, we don't allow hand grenades on our streets. Why? Because they can cause mass carnage in a matter of moments. So how do you reconcile that with a weapon like an AR-style weapon like that, semi-automatic, that can kill as many people in a matter of moments as a hand grenade? What's the difference? We banned automatic weapons in the 1930s, significantly changed firearms laws in the late 1960s after political violence. So why not look at it the same way? I'm not proposing taking people's firearms, but I am encouraging and demanding that firearms owners sit at the table. They don't want their kids killed in mass shootings any more than I do. So my invitation is, let's do it differently. I'm not going to propose all the solutions now because the truth is, I'm not sure I have them all. But there are people that do, and it's time that everyone comes together, and that's the kind of leadership I would provide, not just what my party wants, what the country needs.
Congressman, I mean, you know well that a lot of times the barrier to this change is, divided Congress,
Sure.
Not being able to pass some of these things. How would you approach that as president, working with perhaps still a divided Congress? And how would you, differentiate your approach from President Biden or former President Trump?
I would do it exactly the way I'm doing it right now. Last year I was the most bipartisan member of Congress, according to the Common Ground Committee. This year I'm the second most bipartisan member, both the House, the Senate, and every governor. It's about 580 some people, and that's how I operate. I was the vice chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, 32 Democrats, 32 Republicans that talk about these issues. That's my ethos. That's what I believe in, that we don't have all the answers, and our system is designed to not allow things to change easily. It is designed to ensure that the majority party and minority party have to work together. And when I arrived in Congress in 2019 and sat together with my new colleagues on both the right and left for the first time and thought we would sit down and have dinner together and get to know each other, instead we're divided and sent on separate buses to separate events. I knew that we had a problem that I was going to solve someday, and that's how I would do so. I just told you moments ago, in the White House, my cabinet, my administration, will have people of different perspectives. I'm sick of people believing that you surround yourself with everyone who feels the same, that prays the same, that looks the same, that eats the same, that thinks the same. What a recipe for disaster. And our first president said it best in his farewell address. He warned us that we would fail if we didn't heed the risks of factions, of regionalism, and of foreign influence. And I ask people to read that because that's exactly what is converging right now. Exactly. And that's why I need to do better. I'm tired of generations in the past thinking that more of the same is going to solve it, more money, more Democrats, more Republicans. No, we got to totally change it, and we can. And I want to open the White House to people who have ideas, the way that Abraham Lincoln welcomed Americans of all stripes from all places to literally come to the White House, get in line, and sit down with your president. I want to bring people in. I want to have dinners of Democrats and Republicans all around the country to listen to you, because it's a very insulating job. The people doing it have been too often there for decades, and I'm sick of it. I'm speaking for what I call the exhausted majority who want us to do better. Why not give me 4 years? Let's see if we can't do this better. At least try to do it the way I think most Americans want. And the only impediment is name recognition, getting in front of people, and two significant party operations, Democrats and Republicans, that seem to be much more interested in coronations, not competition, and preservation of the status quo. So I just say it's time to declare independence again from the status quo and try it better. And we will. It's time for a new generation.
So let's talk about that pathway
Sure.
to the White House. Let's talk logistics. The Atlantic wrote that you have essentially 3 tactical teams happening. You have headquarters, maneuver, and content. We've been with you today. You have a lot of staff. That costs a lot of money. Who's behind this? Who's financing you? Are you self-funded? Is money coming from Silicon Valley? You also talk about 119 town halls to win here. Again, that's a lot of
That's
money.
a lot.
So explain to me the logistics and operation and where that money is coming from.
To answer your questions directly, which I know rarely happens from people in Congress and running for president, I've seeded my campaign with up to $2 million because this is an extraordinarily expensive affair. As evidenced by the people you see, it takes a lot of people to start an operation like this. By the way, within 3 weeks, 3 weeks ago, I made the decision that someone has got to do this because President Biden is going to lose to Donald Trump. The national polls say that, the battleground state polls say that, and his approval ratings at 37% say the same thing. You just followed me through a school where the sentiment was exactly the same. I really don't want either of these people anymore. It's time for change. So we have to raise money from people. I spent my first parts of my morning on the bus calling $5 donors because those are the people who will fuel this campaign. And as the only member of Congress who takes no PAC money, no special interest money, no lobbyist money, no member money, meaning members of Congress do not give me money. I don't take it, nor do I give it to them, and I don't have a leadership PAC, which means I've got a much steeper slope than most candidates for president and for Congress. And that means I need Americans who care about this, who agree in the exhaustive majority that we got to change how we do this. And that's how we're going to fuel this campaign. And that's why I am making an appeal to people. If you believe in this, $5, joining the Dean team, at dean24.com, that's how we do this. Presidential politics are obscenely expensive, and I'm sickened by it. Campaign finance reform is integral to reforming this country in the way that people get heard again. And when I'm president, mark my words, I will do I can't promise it'll get done. Every president promises what he or she could possibly do, candidates. I can't promise that. But I promise you, if that becomes important to you, and I think it should, we'll do our best, because it is corrupting, disgusting, and repulsive.
So just two different questions on what's happening in Israel and Gaza right now. In Congress, you had 15 House Democrats who did not vote for a bipartisan resolution that declared solidarity with Israel and condemned Hamas. Do you have a response to that? And is there a fear that as you're campaigning, that more progressive wing of Congress will isolate Democratic voters?
Well, the people that voted against it, the people that believe that Hamas is an organization for peace, the people that don't believe Israel has a right to exist, I just have a fundamental disagreement with them. But I also have great passion for solutions. I have great compassion for Palestinian lives. I'm horrified and disgusted by the blood that's being spilled by Palestinians, by what Hamas did to Israelis. I'm disgusted that the Hamas mandate is to destroy the state of Israel. I'm horrified by this loss of life, and I'm sick and tired of it. And once again, another example of things that have been going on for 50 years. And if we think that the same people, the same generations, the same ideas, the same tactics are going to solve it, we are out of our minds. It's as simple as that. I think it's time for the Israelis to stop the settlements. It is provocative. It is wrong. I've told this to Prime Minister Netanyahu to his face. I think it is part of why Israel is right now subject to this horror. I think it's time for Hamas to be totally eliminated. They have to be. And once they are, it's time for Palestinians to have a free and fair election, both in the West Bank and in Gaza. Give Palestinians the choice to effect change. If they replace Hamas with a government that wants to pursue peace, we, the United States, every nation in the world should push them together and demand it and not rest until it happens. Palestinians need a homeland. They need self-determination. They need peace, security, and prosperity, just like Israel does. Plain and simple. I couldn't be more clear than that. We also have hundreds of Americans right now trapped in Gaza. Hundreds of Americans. And it's time for the United States government, it's time for the Israeli government and the Egyptian government to extract them now, period. And I'm really tired of this inaction, the nonsense, and the war, and it has to stop. I love Israelis. I love Palestinians who want peace. I love any human being that is disgusted by this and wants to do better. So I extend an invitation, not condemnation, to all those who might be demeaning Israel, demeaning the Jewish community. If you're really a progressive, you should be as interested in the protection of the state of Israel, the only progressive nation in the entire Middle East, the only one that has Muslims, Christians, and Jews living side by side, the only one that values the LGBTQ plus community, the only one that treats women the way they should be treated and engaged in society, the only nation. So if you are a real progressive, in the words of Richie Torres, who understands this better than I think anybody in this country right now, support Israel. And you will see the progressive movement supporting both. That's how we're going to get this done. But if you're going to take a side for a terrorist organization that mutilated babies and grandmothers, come on. Come on.
Congressman, just one more quickly, following up on what you were talking about with Kelsey. We saw on the Republican side just this past weekend, former Vice President Pence dropped out. A big concern was he didn't have the donors yet to make that debate stage, getting those small donors. You said that's something you're working on. But, do you think if you reach a point where you're not meeting the level that you would like to see, would you be willing to you said you seeded your own campaign, would you be willing to put more of your own money towards it?
I think it's very unlikely that I'll put in more. Very unlikely. Because I know we're going to raise it. We stood this up in 3 weeks. Supporters coming in from all over the country. The best calls of my day, the only calls of my morning, are to the people who give $5, because I know that $5 was a lot harder for them to part with than the people who give $5,000. People who give the $5,000, the $3,300 times 2, $6,600 you can give to a presidential campaign, a couple, to partners, they have access right now to the government. They have access to their member of Congress, to their city council people, their mayor, their governor, to the president. The $5 donors don't. And yes, we will rely on small dollar donors. It is starting to pour in, is the truth, as our campaign is expressed and exposed and introduced, as I get to be in front of people. I know that'll happen. And the only thing that would force me out of this campaign is a belief that I will not become the nominee. And that means I will stop this campaign and I will get behind whoever will become the nominee, including if that's President Biden, and give that campaign just as much as I'm giving this one, in my time, my energy, and my passion, because it's that existential. We will not have a 2028 election in the way we know it and want it and have come to rely on if Donald Trump becomes president, period. And right now, President Biden is going to lose. And most Americans, as evidenced by my days on the street right here, they don't know. Because Americans are so sick and tired of the nonsense and the dysfunction that they're not even paying attention. And by not paying attention, they assume President Biden can win again because he did last time. That's not going to happen. And the culture of silence amongst Democrats is staggering. And the arrows and the resistance to a campaign like mine, predicated on doing better, being kind, being strong, defending people's rights, doing better for the country, the fact that Democrats are offended by that, we got bigger problems if that's the case. And I think that is the problem in the country right now. They would want people to believe that President Biden is in great position. The country is behind him. He's going to win easily. Wrong. The numbers don't lie. People are lying.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate your
See you
time.
tomorrow night.
He's going to talk with the student body president as we walk out.
Oh, yeah,
He just
cool.
asked not to be on camera. If that's
Oh,
Okay.
Very nice.
And what's
Of course.
his
so we
name?
can just
Rehearsal?
pack up, right?
I'll introduce you right now.
And most of all, thanks for what you all do.